Welcome, everybody, to the very first episode of Fantasy Football Weekly here at Fantasy and Frames. Brand new show for us. We have no idea what to expect. You have no idea what to expect, but we do expect this. It's going to be fun. It's going to be uncensored, potentially. And we're definitely going to, at the end of the day, we hope you walk away from this just feeling like you just, inherited 3 new friends. Can't wait to start this show. Today's show, we're going to be talking about news going around the fantasy football world / community, as well as the NFL, talk about some of our favorite players that we should be targeting before free agency starts in Dynasty and for best ball. And you know what? We'll talk about whatever the hell we want to talk about after that. So without further ado, Keith, let's hit it. All right, well, I mentioned his name, so before we get started on today's show, let me introduce my co-hosts here. You will become very familiar, if not already, even more so familiar with them as the weeks go on throughout 2024. Let me introduce you first. He is the head of our DFS content here at Fantasy and Frames. He has won a lot of money. This guy
a good year. It's been a good year.
It's been a good year. This guy knows his shit. It is fantastic. He is the host of the Daily Fix Show, along with him and Joe Matz, which you can find in season here on Fantasy and Frames. I present to you Mr. Keith Fleming. Keith, what the hell is up, my man?
It's been a rough week for your boy. My wife cleaned the shower on Tuesday. I was not aware of it. I slipped in the shower. I mean, can you feel any older than when you go to get in the shower and literally busted my ass? And then to make matters even worse, 2 days later, I couldn't hardly walk, just from soreness, from falling down. So
you had a good run.
Apparently, this is the 40s, I guess. So it's all downhill from here.
Dude, I walk with a cane. Okay,
it's one of those... You had major surgery, though. I'm fairly healthy right now.
Ignore that part. We see Jamie in the chat. What's going on, Jamie? Good evening to you as well. Next on the list here is the newest member to the Fantasy and Frames family. He really needs no introduction, but you know what? We're going to give him one anyhow. He hosts Fantasy Alarm's Lightning Round show with Andrew Cooper and Britt Flynn. In season, you can find his work at Fantasy Alarm doing the Target Report, as well as all the other content he does at Fantasy Alarm. He's somebody that I met at the Fantasy Football Expo. I want to say in 2021, we met at the bar at the DoubleTree, and it's been awesome ever since. I present to you, everybody, Mr. Kevin Tompkins. Kevin, what's going on, brother?
Not too much. It's funny we talk about that expo because I went down to get some food and I was talking to Nate Markham's wife, Carrie, and had no idea it was, obviously I didn't really know her, but I had no idea Nate was like right there. And then you were like kitty corner away too. So I literally had eaten for like a half an hour talking to who I thought was a stranger next to me, and it was Carrie. And then realized it was Nate, realized it was you, and look where we are now, almost 3.5 years later.
Yeah. First of all, let me speak on Carrie and Nate. First and foremost, for those who don't know today, they are celebrating their 4-year wedding anniversary. So congratulations to them. For those who
they don't need any more congratulations. They're Chiefs fans. They've had freaking enough. Okay. I'm done with the Markhams.
The parade just keeps going.
I'm over it. Okay. He can't keep winning. He's not DJ Khaled. So
what? He's not DJ Khaled.
I'm done. Sorry, Nate. I'm done. He wins these, ranking awards, Super Bowls. Like, he gets plenty of kudos. Do we really got to spend time giving?
Why can't he slip in the shower?
Right?
Why can't he slip in the shower? Well, fine. We won't talk about Nate. We'll talk about.
I'm kidding.
No. It's fine. It's warranted. No, I'm just kidding, Nate. It's not warranted. But shout out to Carrie, the Fantasy Football Expo. Just both of them, in all seriousness, a fantastic pairing right there, and they're there at the expo every single year. Don't be afraid to come up to them. They're great to talk to. They're great people all around, and chances are, if you run into us, you'll be doing some shots, like a lot of them. Throughout Expo weekend. So look forward to that, folks. As well as, we talk about things to look forward make sure to check out all of our content here at Fantasy and Frames. Recapping what happened on Fantasy and Frames Wednesday night. Just last night, the Dynasty 365 crew of Stacey Perez and Tyler Heil, they talked about the top 8 quarterbacks from our Fantasy and Frame consensus rookie rankings, which you can find for free over at fantasyandframes.com. Immediately after that, on Fourth and Frames, the guys Rhett, Drew, and Chris, they welcome Michael Bauer from the Dynasty Rerun, who's a good friend of all of us here at Fantasy and Frames, and chances are he's a good friend of yours in the fantasy football community. They conducted their second Superflex rookie mock draft. Definitely want to check that out.
Guys have a great show. It's one of my favorite shows. I tell them all the time. I've been on a couple of times. I love their show. Really good stuff.
It's almost a year they just started podcasting. Isn't that crazy?
I've
right?
said it each time I've been on. I've really been impressed. It's very well prepared. A lot of great information. Can't recommend that show enough.
Great stuff. And again, you can listen to them wherever you listen to podcasts, as well as going to our YouTube channel, YouTube page, checking it out there. While you're there, hit that subscribe button and that notification bell, so that way you're notified whenever we drop some awesome content here on fantasyandframes.com, as well as the Fantasy and Frames YouTube channel. And yeah, so without further ado, let's get into some talking points. The FSWA award winners were announced yesterday. Last week or the week before, the FSGA award winners were announced. Both excellent, organizations that look at really the cream of the crop when it comes to the top of the fantasy football world. And we kind of want to give some shout outs here. Kevin, let's start with you. Is there anybody from either of these award shows that you're a big fan of that you want to speak on?
Yeah, good friend of mine, Brian Drake, took home Football Article of the Year in a league that I was actually in. He talked about his son doing a fantasy football draft, and I got to beat him in the middle of the season. I can't remember who ended up taking home the championship, but all I know is I sucked and I still beat him. So I beat a 9-year-old. I think we want to just high praise for that.
Yeah. You got to teach him young that you got to earn wins. So
you really do.
Good for you, Kevin.
Yeah, I got to teach him the ways of zero RB. I don't know if his dad's going to let me do that. Brian's going to let me do that, but it is what it is. And then my good friend Corbin Young took home some FSWA hardware as well, Baseball Writer of the Year. So good friend Corbin Young, big shout out to him as well. And then Fantasy Alarm took home big FSGA award as well for the video work. So gotta love that. And what about you guys?
For me, it hits home to me because we're starting to cover it this year at Fantasy and Frames. It really hits home to our director of college fantasy football here at Fantasy and Frames, Chris Battistell, because Eric Froton, the guy who nailed karaoke at the Fantasy Football Expo for singing Cult of Personality at the Doubletree, like the dude is like dancing on tables singing Cult of Personality. CM Punk should have walked out of the doors as soon as he started singing that song. It was fantastic. He took home 2023's College Sports Writer of the Year. He is a huge proponent of college fantasy football. It's starting to it's I'm not gonna say it's taken over, but it's on its way to establishing itself as one of the awesome ways to play fantasy football. And again, like I said, we cover that now here at Fantasy and Frames under the direction of Mr. Chris Battistell. I also want to give a shout out FSWA 2023 best short form fantasy video, Matt Harmon and Austin Eckler. A little bit more mainstream, but it is great seeing an NFL player really just dive in and commit to being a part of the fantasy football community and taking time out of their busy week each and every week during the season to help make fantasy football content. And as far as Matt Harmon is concerned, I don't know Matt Harmon. I've never had the pleasure of having him on a show, never talked to him. What I do know, however, is when I first started getting into fantasy football content creation, I watched a lot and listened to a lot of NFL Fantasy, the podcast. And, James Coe, Matt Harmon, Matt Franciscovich, you just go down the list, Marcus Grant, just people I looked up to for a very long time. I know Matt Harmon would be a great friend to me. I think I would make a very good friend to Matt Harmon. I think this is something that should actually happen. Matt Harmon.
It's pretty humble of you there, Jorge.
It is. Right? Isn't it so? I think I could provide a great friend to you because at the end of the day, let me remind you, Mr. Matt Harmon, you and Matt Franciscovich had a podcast called the Fantasy hipsters, or is it the fantasy football hipsters? I guess. I listened to that show. I wrote into you. You answered one of my questions on that show. I am that person that every year on Twitter tags you and Matt Franciscovich about how I wish this podcast was still going. And you all reply back about nobody ever listened to it. Well, I am that somebody. That's how I know I would be a great friend to you, sir. I share your sentiments there, Kevin, with Fantasy Football Article of the Year with Brian Drake. Just like you said, just a real heartwarming story about father and son playing fantasy football. And if you ever met him in person, he's definitely a class act in this industry. Just you can't say enough about him. Speaking of class acts, we talk about now the FSGA awards, Best Video Awards startup. Dr. Kevin Murray. Kevin, both of us have had the pleasure of being on his show where they do video spotlights of content creators. I met him, very interestingly enough, at a fantasy footballers show in New York City, I want to say back in 2019.
Nice.
And I just started getting into being more active on Twitter. And the guy, I'm sitting at my seat. I'm like, I don't know what to expect. There should be other content creators here. And all I hear is Jorge. And I'm like, okay, that's new. And I'm like, is there other Jorges here? There's the possibility. I mean, I'm in New York freaking City. The guy walked over, introduced himself. He was wearing his, red jacket that he's known for whenever he goes out in public for the fantasy football. Just a great guy, a humble guy, more humble than I'm being right now. And just to be on his show is an honor. He just started this up recently, this past year. So kudos to you, Kevin. And again, going to the Video Award Bit-Size Fantasy Alarm, all the work, Kevin, that you and everybody over there, Howard Bender. I can't say enough about Howard Bender. He's been really helpful. He was on the Super Bowl DFS show with Keith a couple weeks ago. He's had a bunch of the Fantasy and Frames members on his show during the week. Here
not me. Come on, Howard. What the hell?
Not you yet. Not you yet.
I'll send him a text right now for you, Keith.
You the man.
Yeah. Have him drop in the comments like Keith Fleming, guaranteed to be on the show next year. We got John McGlenn in the chat. What's going on, John? And then, of course, one website that I'm proud to know that I know the owner of the website, Joe Bryant, for Football Guys. They won Best Written Content for a mid-sized company. The success of every organization out there starts at the top, and Joe Bryant's one of the classiest people out there. Then you look at all the people who write for Football Guys, just amazing people who know their shit, who just are great content creators. Whether they do written content, video content, you just got to love it, so much respect to Kevin, Fantasy Alarm, and the Football Guys for FSGA. Just tremendous stuff here. But with that being said, let's shift our topic into free agency. All right, so free agency is coming up here. We got a couple weeks before it starts. We're already dealing with combine stuff, which we'll get to in a second. Yes, I'm going out of order on the show sheet. We are potentially off the rails already on this show, so fantastic. With that being said, before we get into other things, who are free agents that you're excited about potentially acquiring? From a fantasy football standpoint, for Dynasty, for example, or just people that you're just interested in seeing their landing spots and how that affects fantasy football going forward, Keith?
I don't care about anything right now but the Atlanta Falcons trading for Justin Fields, if we're being honest. The thing I'm most interested in is the running back position. I can't remember a year where there's just – you have no idea. And I mean, Kevin can answer this better than I can because I don't do a lot of best ball, but I do a lot of dynasty. I don't know what to do with these guys. Like, I'm in a dynasty auction startup draft right now, and all these free agent running backs, basically I'm looking at if they're cheap, I'm going to take them and just hope they end up in a great situation because we have no idea. And it's going to be really a different landscape from that position next year when, 10 legit good starting running backs are free agents and we don't know where they're going to go. Obviously, there's some other situations. It looks like all these wide receivers are going to end up getting, franchise tagged, or they're going to work out some kind of deal. And then again, selfishly, I just want to know who the hell the Atlanta Falcons quarterback is going to be. And hopefully he'll be better than Marcus Mariota or Desmond Ridder.
I would love to get this running back take from the running back aficionado, and I say that wink, wink, nudge, nudge, not really sarcastically. Mr. Kevin Tompkins, what do you make of this running back situation here in free agency?
I don't want to say dust balls. No. Look, Saquon Barkley is clearly the class of this running back. You're talking about what? Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, Tony Pollard, Austin Eckler, Josh Jacobs. Like, it's a treasure trove of the 2019 fantasy draft, pretty much the second round. But look, these guys are going to fall into roles. Like, Derrick Henry still got a little bit left of the tank. We know Josh Jacobs had a kind of a down year after a breakout 2022. There's already news about Saquon Barkley talking to CJ Stroud. Now Houston might start becoming a destination for.
Let's hope not. He doesn't run very well in that zone scheme that they like to run. That's the worst. He's like, I think almost under 4 yards per carry the last 2 years. So,
well, he'll always have the Campbell's Chunky Soup ads that he can do with CJ Stroud. So, he's not going to be hurting for money.
No, for sure.
It's the running back position. Maybe they will be.
I'll take what they're making.
Yeah, we all will. But look, and then you talk about like the second kind of tier of those running backs. You're looking like the DeAndre Swifts, the obviously J.K. Dobbins coming off yet another major injury, but somebody's still going to throw some money at him just on the hope that he become 75% of what he was. Even
for 5
like guys
minutes 3 years ago. Now I'm the sucker every year. I'm like, I'm back in. I'm all the way back in, and then he's hurt. And I'm like, Keith, you moron.
Yeah, and then John makes a good point in the chat. Add Alexander Madison to the list right now because he is going to be released by the Minnesota Vikings. I think we'll talk about a little more about that situation later on, but still, a lot of running backs. And, there's a lot of kind of musical chairs that have to be floated around, but this is going to dictate a lot of how we're perceiving these offenses. Like, what is Houston going to do? Are they really going to add a big piece in the running back to Dameon Pierce and then kind of figure out how they want to navigate that? Or, there's a lot. Dallas, I mean, that's a massive one too. The Giants, obviously, if they retain Saquon Barkley, but they don't want to do the tag again for, I think it was like $12 million. So it's going to be very interesting to see what this running back class does. And we'll get some clarity in a little less than 2 weeks here, which is
second week of March.
Kind of wild. It feels like the Super Bowl just ended. I mean, I was doing best ball drafts before the Super Bowl. But there's no offseason in the NFL anymore. It's all just one big glut of everything. And now we get to just you lose
credit for it, though. They make it, just they figured it out, right? Like it's
you consume our product year round.
Yep. It's like I went to the Senior Bowl, like right after the Super Bowl, right? And I'm like, okay, now we get a little break. I can start really concentrating on golf, and auction drafts are starting, and you got the combine and the draft, and it's just like, damn, man, let's get a little bit of an off season, just a little one.
Well, it wouldn't be a Fantasy and Frames show without talking about some IDP fantasy football. So I'll talk about a pair of free agents that I'm excited about. Danielle Hunter, Shaquille Barrett. You want to talk about some elite edge rushers / defensive linemen that you can insert as your, defensive lineman ones. Danielle Hunter in particular, just the elite of the elite there. I mean, he was in the top 3 in fantasy points per game using Fantasy Pros IDP scoring. Enough can't be said about him. Free agent for the Minnesota Vikings. Do they bring him back? Do they look at one of these edge rushers who's tearing it up at the combine as we speak? I don't know. I would definitely like the Commanders, my home team, to, yes, I am a Commanders fan. Yes, we do exist. Yes, I am going to be preaching about them. Do they bring in Hunter? I would like that. Shaquille Barrett, again, just released from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Just elite edge rushers that, maybe not for Dynasty. For Dynasty, if you're in win now mode, go get these guys. Go get these guys. They're probably going to be cheap because they're not on teams. And, like we said, free agency is less than around 2 weeks away. If you're able to pull out the trade for cheap, I think you're going to be pleasantly rewarded just based off of their talent and what they've done over the course of their careers. Another free agent, Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley. man, we really hyped him up in draft season in August, and then that just kind of fell apart. I mean,
week one, we were eating crow. Like, he came out with 100 yards, and we were like, well, we're stupid. And then the rest of the season happened. We're like, all right, well, I feel a little bit better about fading him, because I kind of faded Calvin Ridley, and I felt really stupid after week one. But that's why week one is week one and not 1 through 18.
Yeah, he played the Colts, which we found out that was why.
That was the cheat
week
code.
one. Yep.
No disrespect, or maybe some disrespect.
No, it's in DFS, we target bad defenses, and the Colts were a treasure trove for wide receivers down the stretch. Treasure trove. Thank you, Colts. Appreciate you.
Before we get to my last player I want to talk about here in free agency, let's answer a question here from Richard. Dynasty wise, do you aim for some of these running backs now while things are in the air and they're possibly cheaper, or do you wait it out to find out what is set in stone before you make a move for them? Kevin, what are your thoughts here?
I don't think really a lot of these free agents really changed my mind as far as wanting to roster them, because I'm usually taking running backs. If I have if I have rookie draft picks, I'm taking running backs. If the rest of my roster is set, I'm usually trading them, the running backs like the Saquon Barkleys and those guys, before we even get to free agency, because I just don't. You're going to take that value hit, and that's just such a massive, kind of be a crippling asset to have to figure out. Now I got to trade him now that he's going to be on the Carolina Panthers or something like that. Like, I don't want to have to deal with that. So I'm happy with the Breece Halls and, the Jahmyr Gibbs and guys like that, where I know I at least have a kind of a 2 or 3 year window. I'm not trading for running backs unless they are like, just massive assets, young assets. I'm not really taking a lot of risk. I don't want to take the risk of bringing on a Saquon Barkley and having him just depreciate almost 50% of his value in one move to Carolina, where it's like a black hole of fantasy value.
Keith, what about you? What do you think about all that?
I agree pretty much with everything he's saying. I'm also, I wouldn't call myself a no running back guy, but I've been saying for several years that you shouldn't be spending value capital in drafts or in dynasty leagues on running backs. It's like what Kevin's saying. If it's, the drafts of incoming players, that's where you should target them. And I'm kind of surprised the NFL is starting to get to this, but they haven't figured that out. And I think we're going to see that with wide receivers, because you're seeing more and more wide receivers come into the league and have an instant impact. And that's becoming a more and more expensive position. And I think you're going to see that more from teams as well in the future, where they're going to try to basically cut bait with some of these wide receivers after they're able to franchise tag them 1 or 2 years and hope that they can find somebody else in the draft. Because look, there's like probably 5-6 guys in this draft that could end up being elite, like number 1 wide receivers, not only for fantasy, but, just for an NFL, franchise.
Well, yeah, worked out for John Robinson, didn't he? Trading A.J. Brown and trying to replace him with Treylon Burks.
Yeah.
Well, he's in a position to make up for that, or I guess there's a new GM in town, so I guess he's not.
It's tough to say, though, that you're looking for the wide receiver of the future when you had a guy that was 23 and every metric showed he was one of the greatest wide receivers ever.
The grown-ass man of grown-ass men.
Exactly. And it's like, it's one of the few times everybody went nuts over a trade and everybody was right. I don't understand how some of these GMs get jobs. I really don't.
Well, he doesn't have one, so
that's exactly.
Yeah, I hope you're happy. There you go.
He'll be back though. You know what I mean? Like I guarantee he'll be working in an organization in no time. So,
let me ask you guys a question. Kirk Cousins, coming off the Achilles, is already doing the YouTube videos of the workouts and whatnot, all the TikToks and Instagram reels. Are we thinking he's leaving Minnesota? Or is he going to land somewhere in free agency that we're going to be kind of like, Keith?
I'm scared because I'm seeing reports that he could come to Atlanta, and it's no disrespect to Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is, I think, one of the most underrated QBs in my lifetime. Like, he's really good. If you look, in Washington, wasn't exactly like that was a loaded roster. He put up great numbers in Minnesota. The reason I don't think he's leaving the Vikings is Justin Jefferson has said publicly that a big part of him staying in Minnesota is that Kirk Cousins is going to be throwing him passes. And if I was the Minnesota Vikings, there's no way in hell I'm letting Justin Jefferson go. So that would probably mean that I'm at least bringing Cousins back for a few more years. And let's be honest, the Vikings probably would have been a legit Super Bowl contender had Cousins not got hurt last year. Like, they were a really good team when Cousins was healthy this year. And now with, Addison emergence, they got TJ Hawkinson. This is all of a sudden, if Cousins can come back and be what he was before the injury, going to be one of the elite offenses in the league. And I still think the NFC is a little down. So I would be shocked if the Vikings let him go because just look at my Atlanta Falcons, right? Everybody wanted to hate on Matt Ryan, who I've always said was a great quarterback. And then, you know what? A lot of these Atlanta fans that couldn't wait for us to get Matt Ryan. They got to see what happens when you don't have a franchise quarterback. You get Marcus Mariota, Desmond Ridder, and Taylor Heineke. It fucking sucks. Look at the Patriots without Brady. You need to make sure you have the next guy before you let somebody who is definitely the guy go.
Got a comment here from Jamie in the chat. I believe the odds makers have Cousins going to the Raiders, but I think he stays a Viking. That is an interesting mix right there.
Devontae, Jacoby, I kind of like that.
Yeah,
maybe
Michael Mayer, perhaps.
Nope.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins is in a great spot to get a bag. Look at the rest of the free agent quarterbacks. You got Baker Mayfield, Minshew, Joe Flacco, who's Jacoby Brissett. We're talking about fringe backups, really good backups right now. Maybe Mayfield could start again. I mean, the Dave Canales quarterback whisperer, effect certainly had an impact on Baker Mayfield's value going forward because he was pretty much left for dead. Even with that Rams stint that he had at the back end of 2022. But Kirk Cousins is in a great spot right now to get a bag from whoever wants to give it to him. I would be surprised if he does leave Minnesota, but I wouldn't be surprised if someone just, like in Atlanta, just unloads the back of the truck. It just brings the Brinks truck back and puts it at his doorstep. I mean, who says no to money?
Yeah, exactly. Everybody loves money. Speaking of money, let's talk about some players that could be getting paid early as NFL draft picks. Let's switch to the combine a little bit. Keith, let's start with you, man. Who's a couple players that you're interested in seeing in the NFL combine? Do you put stock in a lot of the combine? What's your take when it comes to that? I was going
to say, you're asking the wrong guy. This is probably a hot take. I could give two shits about watching guys run around in T-shirts and shorts. I watch guys on Saturdays, and I see what they do on Saturdays, and then I put that into Sundays. Now, don't get me wrong. Do I like to pay attention to it? Yes. If there's two guys that I kind of have them near, do I want to see what their metrics are side by side? Of course, but I am not going to change my opinion on anybody because they run a little slower 40 or a little faster, or they can do 55 jumping jacks or whatever the fuck it is. So I can't stand this week. I think it's so overhyped and overdone. And what bothers me is really smart people buy way too into this stuff. And it's we see smart people that work in NFL franchises make huge mistakes for the same reason. Because they just, oh my God, he runs a 4.3 40. And it's well, he caught 12 passes over his last 2 years in college. I don't know if this guy's going to be any good. So again, I'll obviously pay attention to I want to see the results, and I would use that if two guys are, I'm comparing, or who do I like more, but ultimately it has very little effect on what I think about players coming out of college. I'm much more concerned about what did they do, especially against the stiffest competition they played against, especially for these smaller schools. I look at their numbers, their game tapes, etc., from when they played the best programs, because those teams have the most future NFL players on it. And that's going to be, kind of a small sample size of what is going to come at the next level.
I think you're 100% wrong. And let me tell you why. Not because anything you said is incorrect, but just your overall opinion that the combine is nothing to be beholden to. The Pro Bowl Skills Challenge back when the Pro Bowl was back in Hawaii, the Pro Bowl Skills.
I don't give a shit about the Pro Bowl either.
You do not like the Pro Bowl Skills Challenge? Come on. Everybody likes seeing people great.
No, I do not. I do not care about the Pro Bowl game.
Bring back the NFL quarterback challenge.
Yes. Thank you. Kevin, you get it.
But the combine is useless.
No, but the combine
go. Okay, if I brought a stopwatch and a laptop into the combine, I fit in. If I want to watch guys run in shorts and I bring a stopwatch and a laptop to the Y, I'm either getting arrested or kicked out. That's normal stuff at the I'm not running. I'm not watching
of them in their boxers, right? What's going on here?
but he ran fast in spandex at the combine. Yeah, I get it. I don't disagree with what you're saying, but like for me, this is like college Pro Bowl skills challenge. Like that's all this is. Like who can run the fastest, who can do the farthest, who can do this and that. Like that's all it is. It's a Pro Bowl skills challenge for college players. That is the scouting combine.
You do realize though, Jorge, that people can train to run a faster 40. But when they're on the field, if you look at top speed, in pads, running from people, going side to side, that's totally different. And that's what I try to tell people. How often does somebody run a 40-yard dash in the NFL? Basically never in a straight line. It's not football.
Oh, I know. I'm not disagreeing with you that this is overhyped, and I 100% agree. Like, show me what you've done on the football field in a football game.
You're just saying you enjoy the event. You're not saying
I enjoy it. It's theatrics. It's theatrics. Who could throw the ball the farthest? I don't know. Is it Drake May? Is it JJ McCarthy? What's Jalen Wright going to do? What's Troy Franklin going to do? Like, can he catch the ball 7 times in a row while crossing the field? I don't know. He got 5. Oh, he got 8. Like, it's little shit like that it's like, okay, this is entertaining. I'm not one of those people who's like, well, based off of their, 3-cone drill that is, indicative of player performance. What's indicative of player performance? Their performance in college. That's my take. But But I digress. Let's get into.
I was just gonna say the only player who played like he was at the combine was John Ross. That's the only player who's played like he was at the combine. Literally run a straight line. John Ross. Maybe Willie Galt, but the kids don't know him. But we'll say John Ross. For the contemporary crowd.
And not to mention, none of these guys are doing anything anyway. Like, they're all backing out of all the things that, like, the top guys are like, no, I'm not going to do that. No, I'm not going to do that. No, I'm not going to do that. And I don't blame them. Like, if you have your draft stock, locked up, they know what's going to happen. This is basically to pick people apart is really what it is.
And you have your pro days where they'll tailor everything to that specific player. They will get,
throwing receivers, instead of guys you just got thrown together with, or,
on a practice field on a practice field that you are familiar with. It is tailored to your skill set, the things that you can do. It is not controlled by an outside entity.
Jamie here, look at Kyron Williams' horrible combine, then watch him play. I mean, exactly. It's what you do on the field for me that matters most.
Jerry Rice ran a 4.6 40, became the best wide receiver of all time. So there's that.
Maybe the best football player of all time.
Yeah, exactly. Arguably one of the best football players of all time.
Yeah.
Let's shift our focus here to some best ball. And Kevin, I want to direct this at you.
You don't want my advice on best ball, Jorge, with my 0 cashes and probably 20 years of trying to do best balls?
I'm scared to ask, but continue, please. Yes. What is your?
No, I'm kidding. Please go ahead, Kevin.
Look, drafts have been going on before the Super Bowl. Kevin, you mentioned it. Obviously they're going on now. For those who are kind of newer to best ball or wanting to give it a shot, what are some tips that you can give right now for people who want to jump in right now before free agency hits, before the NFL draft starts? Like, what should people know? What should they know?
Yeah, so I mean, with best ball now, I know not a lot of people are doing best ball now. There's really only one contest on Underdog, at least it is the big board. And they had the little board, which is a small.
Do they include rookies?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you have no idea where they're going, though.
And that's part of some of the edge, because if you are like tuned into college, if you know these players, this is where you're going to get your edge in knowing, okay, where are these guys slated to go? Like right now, Marvin Harrison is a 2-3 turn pick. And that to me is absolutely wild. Sight unseen. The fact that he might be going to Arizona or New England. Right. Like that price is very wild to me. You look at a guy like Jamar Chase, who, 2 years ago, and this is kind of, where we're getting at with best ball, is that Jamar Chase was like a early 4th round pick. And that seems pretty reasonable as one of the top, wide receivers in the draft that year. But, if you're looking to get your edge with doing best ball this early pre-free agency, getting your head in the weeds, knowing what's going on right now is going to make a huge difference in getting some of these rookies at such a steep discount, where you could get, like last year, guys like Anthony Richardson before he absolutely blew up at the combine. You could get him in the 180s overall in best ball. And then just look at, Tank Dells, obviously Puka Nakua's, guys like that. You could still get them, when we're getting into closer to the season. But this is where your edge gets. There's really like three main kind of windows. It's the windows when the league opens until about the NFL, about to the combine. So once the combine hits and we have all that, you're going to see a lot of rookie shifting, with a lot of the mock drafts, and then from the kind of the combine to the NFL draft, and then from the draft onwards, when we really started getting into more of the redraft stuff and a lot of the ADP shifts. So with the ADP shifting, a lot of these rookies, a lot of the free agents that don't have teams, this is where you can gain a lot of your edge in best ball. And talking with some friends that do fantasy, but maybe not so much best ball, telling them I was drafting teams a week before the Super Bowl. Some of the eye rolls and bug eyes that I got is just kind of fantastic. Not gonna lie.
Can I ask you something, Kevin? For somebody that's like, because again, I've just put my toe into best ball last year. I love the concept. I've got buddies that I'm like, this is what we should be doing. I'm like, you draft and you're done. Like that's what we should do instead of doing these auctions or season long leagues. Let's do it this way. You don't have to worry about free agency, all the other stuff.
Yep.
What would you recommend is kind of your standard position breakdown in a draft? Or does it depend on like what you get? Like if you get, say, a really solid quarterback, does that mean you're going to pick less backup QBs? Or do you kind of have a standard format that you go through in a best ball draft?
Like it's really kind of dependent on how your draft goes. Like if you're going to take a top quarterback, I mean, we've seen at least last year a lot more 3 quarterback builds. So if you take a top quarterback, I am totally fine with taking maybe 1 or 2 guys late. If I'm taking like a Mahomes, like I'm totally fine with taking like a Will Levis and like pairing him with, Baker Mayfield, just, for argument's sake. Or like if I'm taking, kind of 2 maybe middling quarterbacks, like I'll take like a Tua and a Dak Prescott and then maybe take a third. It kind of depends on your build. Like if I'm taking Christian McCaffrey, if I have the 101 or 102 and I take Christian McCaffrey, that gives me kind of carte blanche as maybe a guy that doesn't draft a lot of running backs to, okay, maybe I can wait on running back and maybe take a group of them kind of toward the later end of the draft. Cause I have my one rock solid kind of linchpin running back. But if I haven't taken a running back and I'm in the 5th round and 6th round, I'll take a few and kind of maybe build it through quantity. So it's really kind of dependent on your comfort level with how you want to build a roster. But typically, these big boards with the rookies, they are 20 rounds. The typical ones that, like Best Ball Mania would be 18 rounds. So I'm usually trying to get maybe only 5 or 6 running backs, the absolute most, 2-3 quarterbacks, about the same at tight ends. I like to call them the onesie positions, quarterback and tight end, because you can get away with drafting 2. But like I said, it all depends on what falls to you. I mean, a lot of people were just taking wide receivers, 8 and 9. And that's great, because if you're taking 8 or 9 and trying to build out quantity, you were getting guys like a Michael Wilson or a Tank Dell or Puka Nacua, even like a Dontavian Wicks or guys like that. So, I mean, it's really kind of dependent, but, as we've seen through like a lot of the winners have kind of just taken like an auction mindset to best ball. Like, okay, I have a top running back. I've allocated X amount. I guess you can say it's maybe $50. So, okay,
so maybe
I
like
don't have
similar
to
you do with an auction, right? Like where
I don't have to spend a lot of
yeah.
capital, right? Whereas if I take one on the 5th round, okay, I've been spending like 10, 9, 8, 8, 8, 6, that kind of mentality. So I know that's really more of like, really getting in the weeds, but that's kind of stuff that I think about with roster construction, and construction is as important as the players you select anyway.
Nice. Shifting over to DFS for a little bit, Keith, you're the DFS mastermind. You were very successful this year on a personal note, as well as just the content you've been putting out, whether it's at Fantasy Six Pack or for Fantasy and Frames. As we're heading though we're in 2024, we still got some months before we're back in the DFS train of thought here. But based off of 2023, what are some lessons that you learned last year that you can impart to some of the viewers as far as like just how to approach DFS for fantasy football?
So first of all, and if you listen to me and Joe Matz, which I should say, actually, first of all, I have a really smart person that you do a show with each week, like I do with Joe the Brain Matz, and I could bounce ideas off of. And, he changes my mind every week on players, and a lot of times it ends up helping me win money. So first of all, appreciate you, Joe. But I know I get the sexiness and the allure of these big multi-entries and $1 million first place. They're sucker bets, okay? They're sucker bets. If you really want to win money and do well at DFS, you should only be doing single entries and double ups. And you just basically, instead of doing, say, $10, $20 entries, if that's what you're doing, and something that, again, there's going to be a ton of people doing 150 entries in those. So you're bringing a pellet to a machine gun fight. You should just do a $200 single entry lineup. The other thing that really has helped this year is I felt very lucky to get to do a lot of work with both Chris Roppen, aka Detroit Beastie, and Dave Eddy, aka Corporal Eddie. And just like with anything else, I'm sure you guys are aware of this. Some people are just smarter or have more experience than you do, and you should constantly ask them questions when you can. And that's what I did. I tried to learn as much as I could from Dave and Chris. And one of the best lessons that I learned from Dave Eddy, who is a cash game specialist, much like myself, is to quit variating your picks so much. It means you're going to have less weeks that you actually win money, but it means that the weeks that you do, you're going to win a lot. And near the end of the year last year, I went all in on this, the last 6-7 weeks. And I mean, I won by far the most money I've ever won in DFS. And it was basically from 3 weeks. And the first, say, 10 weeks, I had like 7 cashes, but was, barely, making a profit, basically winning a little bit here and there. And it's because I was not actually just zoning in on your plays. And the final thing is, just like with anything, you have to trust your gut. There's so much noise and so many voices out there. You need to trust yourself. It's okay to listen to other people, because I have other people in DFS that I listen to what they say, but not many. Like, no offense. Like, you have to pick 1 or 2 guys that you trust, and you need to listen to them. And then outside of that, you need to trust your process, your research, and, just basically figure out a formula and go with it. And then finally, sorry, I know this a lot, but it's always evolving. Me and Joe have had a lot of success the last 2 years, basically from about week 8, 9 on. And what it is we find what defenses cannot cover quarterbacks, cannot stop wide receivers, cannot stop running backs, and we pound them week after week after week. The Indianapolis Colts, somebody we talked about at the beginning of the show, we realized pretty early in the year, wait a minute, they cannot cover number 1 wide receivers. And almost every week, no matter what team it was, I don't care if it was, Desmond Ridder and Drake London playing the Colts, I'm loading up on London. And that is the kind of thing where you can get a real edge, because a lot of people will see, again, Desmond Ridder and Drake London, but if they have a wonderful matchup, they're both going to be cheap. And there is so much because this defense for 10 weeks has not been able to stop anybody from a quarterback wide receiver position. Those are kind of the edges you should be looking for. And then finally, just again in cash games, play CMC. Just always play CMC. It's one of the things Dave Eddy learned: death, taxes, and playing CMC in cash. Wonderful advice, Dave Eddy. Really do appreciate all the advice and stuff that Dave and Chris gave me this year. And me and Joe are excited next year to help the people that listen to us on Fantasy and Frames win a bunch of money.
Talking about strategy and contests, let's shift back over to best ball now for a minute here. And let's go around the frames. And each of us, let's talk about 3 players that we're thinking about taking about in the mid to late rounds pre-NFL draft. Kevin, let's start with you, man.
Yeah, so this, like we talked about with Alexander Madison slated to get released, Ty Chandler is one of my favorite guys that I'm drafting right now. His ADP is going to go up a little bit just because of now, what's Minnesota going to do, whether it's Dwayne McBride on the practice squad or, figuring out drafting a running back, whatever they're going to do, bring in maybe a veteran. But, the Kevin O'Connell effect is certainly in play. Kevin O'Connell does not use very much personnel at all, whether it's the wide receiver position, running back position,
Tight end.
Right, exactly. He used Johnny Munt as a blocker. They used KJ Osborne a little bit, but like those 4th, 5th, 6th wide receivers, didn't use them. Only used 2 running backs, really, even when they had Cam Akers. So it looks like Ty Chandler is locked in unless they do something crazy and draft a running back and kind of goes away from the system. It's looking like Ty Chandler is going to get a lot of carry in Minnesota. And they got to figure out the quarterback position, of course, whether it's Kirk Cousins or whoever. But Ty Chandler's got a nice path right now to about 200 carries and about 40, 50 targets. And getting that where you can get him. And let me, because I just had the ADP up there. RB 38 right now, 125 overall. Like, you really can't beat that at that price. And then I'll stick with the running back position because going 4 places ahead of him is Chuba Hubbard, who has gotten kind of the vote of confidence as well, with, between him and Miles Sanders. That pretty much soap opera between Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders. When Miles Sanders came back from injury, Chuba Hubbard kind of stayed in and almost relegated Miles Sanders into mop-up duty. He got a little more receiving work as the season kind of wound down, but Chuba Hubbard, as far as, rush success, as far as rush percentage over expectation from NFL Next Gen Stats, was, I believe, top 12. With Ty Chandler as well. They were both tied, about over 40%, certainly. And that measures the amount of runs that you're getting over expectation, over the yardage you should have gotten, based on, obviously analytics and down and distance and everything like that. So, really like Chuba Hubbard at where he's going at RB 34, currently on underdog. And look, I don't think Carolina is going to be as bad as they were. That was just an unwinnable situation with Frank Reich, and Bryce Young having kind of like that. I don't want to say Trevor Lawrence-esque, rookie season, but it was as bad as a rookie season could go. And I feel like it can only get better, and that's only going to affect the run game even more. And then Michael Mayer, who started coming on with the routes that he was running. He had to kind of bypass the corpse of Austin Hooper a little bit. He's a free agent. But right now, if they get a quarterback, and we were just saying with the odds with Kirk Cousins, I mean, the odds are on the Raiders, but if they can get a guy like that, you've got Devontae Adams, maybe he gets traded to the Jets. You've still got Jacoby Myers there. I mean, if Devontae Adams gets traded, Michael Mayer's a top 2 target on that team. And then Trey Tucker is obviously a deep threat, high ADOT guy who you're not going to be expecting to pull a lot of target volume. So unless they draft somebody, if they trade Devontae Adams, there's a lot to like about Michael Mayer, who obviously has day 2 capital as well.
Nice. We got a question here from Jamie here in the chat. What are your thoughts about the value on the Bears backfield? Roshan at 124, Khalil Herbert at 144.
Well, as far as those Bears running backs, if Fields is gone and it's Caleb Williams or whoever they like, that's certainly going to open up more run opportunities for either of those guys. If they're going to keep that split, how they kind of had that, then I kind of like both because, if one gets hurt, obviously it's going to open up just a well of opportunity for the other. But I still do like Roshan over Khalil Herbert. I think he could do a lot more, has better size, to be able to kind of take more of a pounding. And the Bears kind of want to run the ball too. They want to get back to, they've got Caleb Williams. Maybe he can open up a lot for DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, guys like that. And with that threat of a Caleb Williams, if he's there, like I said, only gonna open up stuff for the run game. So I do like that Bears backfield. I would like it if one of those guys was not there, but since we kind of have to work with what we have to work with, I do kind of like Roshan a little bit more, but I will draft both because I think it's a very good situation for both guys being able to at least get targets, get, opportunities in the run game. Roshan Johnson's go, let's see, RB 35, and looking at Herbert, RB 44 right now. So both good prices on guys if you want to take a stab on one or both.
Very nice. Very nice. Keith, who are some players that you're targeting?
The first one is Khalil Shakir. The number one thing I want is wide receivers tied to stud QBs. And Josh Allen has just looked Stephon Diggs' way, and that's basically it. Gabe Davis is the ultimate Dick Tease. I'm not doing it again this year. I'm done with him. The great thing is I don't even know if you're going to spend much more capital on Davis than you would Shakir, but just some things to show you how good Shakir was, or even more importantly, how good Josh Allen was when targeting Shakir. Among wide receivers last year, Shakir ranked first in target premium, first in QB rating per target, second in fantasy points per target, first in target accuracy, first in catchable target rate. His last 4 games, he saw 22 targets, caught 20 passes, scored almost 55 points. Maybe Diggs is gone. Who knows? There's so much buzz. But the bottom line is when Josh Allen has the number 1 QB rating in the league throwing to a wide receiver, and it's not Stephon Diggs, it's Khalil Shakir, I'm assuming the Bills are going to know that information as well. And they're going to go, you know what, maybe we need to get the ball to this guy a little bit more this year in an offense that we know is going to be really good. We saw the emergence of James Cook last year. Dalton Kincaid's going to give them, again, more options. And I just think where Shakir's going so late right now, I just got him in that Dynasty auction startup league. And I actually feel like that he's got a chance to be a real breakout guy this year. The next guy is somebody that I know a lot of people are going to think I'm crazy, but I would rather have Isaiah Likely than Mark Andrews. Isaiah Likely is a stud. I tried to tell people 2 years ago because I have a buddy who went to Coastal Carolina, so I knew all about Isaiah Likely. He's a wide receiver. He's not a tight end. And I think what we're going to see from the Ravens is, yes, Mark Andrews is back, but they're not going to just go away from Likely. I think you're going to see a lot of them lining them both up on the field because Likely was by far the best weapon that Lamar Jackson threw all last year. No offense to Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers is going to eventually be a really good receiver, but really, if you look at it, what he's best at is more short underneath stuff. That is not my boy Isaiah Likely, who among tight ends last year, first in QB rating per target, first in target premium, 5th in contested catch percentage, 6th in target separation, 8th in catchable target rate, and he was 7th in touchdowns, really only starting 6 games. And he had obviously that great end, to the season, and we saw him catch a touchdown in the wild card game. I don't see them going away from that. He scored 11 plus points in PPR in 5 of his last 7. And the last one, it's a flyer, but this is best ball. Maybe Kevin can tell me I'm wrong for thinking it this way, but I was very high on Jalen Hyatt. I think that he is a big play waiting to happen. He saw 3+ targets in 7 of his last 12 games, saw at least a 70% snap share, I think in like 8 of those 12. So he started to see the field, but you didn't see it at all early in the season. And with his snaps being up like they were late in the season, I think it's safe to assume he's going to be a focal point in this Giants offense. He's going to be on the field a lot more. And there's 2 options. Either Danny Dimes is the quarterback again, which I know that doesn't make you too thrilled. But you know what Daniel Jones' best feature as a QB is? Throwing the deep ball. You know what Jalen Hyatt is? A deep ball wide receiver. Or the Giants could go get an upgrade at quarterback, maybe then having a little bit better, a job of not only throwing the ball down the field to Jalen Hyatt, but also getting him involved elsewhere. And I just think this is the kind of guy. We saw it last year in his one breakout game. He had like 3 catches for 100 yards. I think he had 2 other games where he had 2 catches for 50. If I'm taking a guy this late in a best ball draft, I want one that I think is going to play a good bit, which he is. And I want somebody who's going to have the ability to have these big games. And I think Jalen Hyatt is the guy that can do that.
Man, the Jalen Hyatt, Darius Slayton debate, I guess, is going to keep going on. I'm a Slayton guy, but I love your takes there. I love all your alt takes that you just
move over. Tyquan Thornton, come on, Jalen Hyatt, let's go.
I almost went Wan'Dale Robinson, who I also really like.
Yeah, he may come up a little bit later in the show also once we get to Dynasty. Let me give you my 3 players in best ball real quick. First is the tight end 11, I believe, currently in the 8th round of underdog best ball drafts. Talking about Jake Ferguson, and he's right up there next to Kyle Pitts in terms of tight ends selected. Look, for the Dallas Cowboys last year, and all these stats I'll be rattling off to you are courtesy of Fantasy Points Data Suite. Look, he was 2nd on the team for the Dallas Cowboys in first read targets, 1st on the team in yards after the catch per reception, to the tight end 4 in yards after the catch. He had 100+ targets in 2023. He was a tight end 9.5 PPR scoring. Like I said, you can get him in the 8th round, tight end 11. Here's the most important part. No coaching changes, no changes to the offensive scheme in Dallas with the Cowboys not firing Mike McCarthy, which the day that they announced that he's coming back as a Commanders fan, thank you. It's definitely a value you can get there in the 8th round. Going back a couple more rounds, Zamir White, running back, Las Vegas Raiders.
Go Dogs.
Is he a former Georgia Bulldog?
If you play running back, I think you're contractually obligated to have played for Georgia.
Yeah, RBU. So there's a few other schools out there that think that. Come on, give me a break. Herschel, Gurley. List goes on. No, Sean. List goes on and on and on. Sorry, Jorge. Go ahead, buddy.
No, you're good. Look, there's a lot of talk that Josh Jacobs will not be re-signed by the Las Vegas Raiders in free agency. From weeks 15 through 18, Zamir White was RB3 in total yards with a 4.7 yards per carry average, RB2 in rushing attempts, RB14 in points per game with 14.1, RB2 in yards after contact. He's going currently as the RB37, 11th round in best ball drafts. If you get him right now, I think you're getting tremendous value in the 11th round for a potentially starting running back who's super efficient. And we know that Antonio Pierce wants to commit to the running game there in Vegas. And we saw
Uber
him
talented too, Jorge. He was the number one running back in his high school class. People forget that. He had some injuries. Zamir White was like the dude, but he had injuries. So it doesn't surprise me you're seeing this now. I think it's a great point.
And to wrap up the last player here, which I was kind of surprised about, given his streak of playing well down the stretch last season. Demarcus Robinson, I believe, currently going 19th or 20th round of underdog best ball drafts. Yeah, we talk about late round flyers. Give me the wide receiver who recently was re-signed by the Rams to a one-year deal, who from weeks 13 through 17 was wide receiver in 20 and half PPR points per game with a 13.1% average. Look, we saw him and Stafford have that connection, even though he was the number 3 target in that offense. They bring him back for another year. Something tells me they're not just going to forget about him. And are we going to expect, that, consistency in performance, going forward the entire season? Probably not. I don't know if you heard about this, but Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, they're still pretty good wide receivers. But the upside is there. And again, that's what you're looking at these later rounds. Who can provide you the most upside, and the track record is there also for Demarcus Robinson. So to round that out, that's Jake Ferguson, Zamir White, and Demarcus Robinson. Before we close out the show today, though, we want to give the Dynasty community some love and talk about some Dynasty targets here that we're trying to get acquired before free agency starts. Kevin, let me throw it back to you. Who are some players real quick that you are interested in acquiring for Dynasty?
Yeah, to piggyback off of Keith, Khalil Shakir is one of my favorite guys as far as a guy who finished top 24 in ESPN's open score with guys like Puka Nacua, Rashee Rice as well, and was top 15 in catch score as well. Definitely somebody that I don't know if the Bills are going to be putting a lot of capital into the wide receiver group. So he could be a guy that can certainly play off of Stephon Diggs, Dalton Kincaid, and gets that elite quarterback, Josh Allen, throwing the ball to him. Another one, Bryce Young. Look, I am a Carolina Panthers hater, but I do think that maybe some of the hate is unwarranted. As I talked about a little bit, how
it's not some of it, a lot of it is.
Right. Like Dave Canales, is coming in tasked with one job, to kind of rejuvenate Bryce Young, to put an offense around him that could be at least competent. If they could do that, then Bryce Young is going to have some building blocks to build off of. Look, 2022, he was the passing game coordinator and quarterbacks coach for Seattle with Geno Smith, and kind of brought him back up last year. Offensive coordinator for Tampa Bay with Baker Mayfield. And now for his final act, hopefully it will be to get Bryce Young as a worthy number 1 overall pick. And yes, I know he is not CJ Stroud, but who is? And then third is a guy that's kind of going under the radar a little bit for Arizona, Michael Wilson. I do know that obviously Marquise Brown is an unrestricted free agent. They are, in the mix for Marvin Harrison. They've still got Trey McBride. But Michael Wilson played a lot of X receiver for them, ran 85% of routes for the Cardinals when he was healthy. Day 2 draft capital, was a very good prospect. I believe it's Stanford. A lot of injuries took their toll on him. But look, if Kyler Murray is, halfway decent and gets back to a little bit more of what we expect out of him, that offense could be, hopefully they get rid of a lot of the tricks and gadgets with, Rondale Moore and all that stuff. If they could be like a functional, productive NFL offense with possibly a Marvin Harrison, with Trey McBride, Michael Wilson will be there. And, I could totally see 100 targets that you can get for probably an early, like a 3rd round pick, or maybe even a late 2nd.
Keith, who do you got for us?
First, I just want to say that I completely agree about Bryce Young. Look at Justin Fields before they went out and got DJ Moore. Very similar situation. No wide receivers, no running back, shitty offensive line. He looked really bad. You get him DJ Moore, all of a sudden he looks pretty good. Don't sell your Bryce Young stock. The other thing is Michael Wilson versus man. Joe the brain. Anytime he's playing against man, you want him in DFS. I mean, it was unbelievable how good he is. He's got to improve versus zone to be a real on the field big difference maker week after week. But dude just killed man, which usually you should be able to teach a receiver that kind of talent how to beat zone. For me, I'm sorry, this is a homer pick, but the league has no idea what's coming in Brock Bowers. They have no idea what is coming in Brock Bowers. In the PFF college football era, he is first in career receiving grade 94.3, first in career receiving yards, first in receiving yak, first in forced missed tackles, first in receiving touchdowns. That's among tight ends. He has 194 career touches. You know how many fumbles he's got, boys? Big fat 0. Dude does not drop the ball. You know what else he can do? He can run. 80% of his rushes went for first downs, including 6 extra touchdowns. And then 40 career games. He just turned 21, by the way. His rookie season, when he had that 100-yard game versus Alabama, he was 18. 175 receptions, 2,538 yards, 31 touchdowns. I'm telling you, he is, if you took Gronk and you took his strength, but you shrunk him down to where he'd had the speed, elusiveness of Kelsey, that is what Brock Bowers is. Watch these guys try to tackle him from the waist up. It ain't happening. Watch him run away from people. He's good after the catch. He's physical. And guess what? On top of all that, he can block, so he's going to be on the field all the time. I am so excited for this guy. I've tried to tell people I am a Georgia fan. I'm a homer, but I also am somebody who will tell you when I think somebody's going to be good or somebody's going to be bad. Brock Bowers is by far in the Kirby era the best player to come out, and I love Jalen Carter, and we saw what he did last year. Next guy, Scary Terry McLaurin. It's 3 straight seasons, 77-plus receptions, 4 touchdowns, 1,000 yards. He had that turf toe this year. That is an awful injury for a wide receiver. Awful injury. But that's not what it is. Let me list you the quarterbacks that Terry McLaurin has put up 77 receptions, 1,000 yards, and 4 touchdowns each year with. Case Keenum, Dwayne Haskins, Colt McCoy, Alex Smith, Taylor Heineke, Garrett Gilbert, Carson Wentz, Joe Max. No, I made up that last one. Sam Howell. Any of those quarterbacks get you going. And this dude's been basically a borderline elite wide receiver with those smucks. And he's about to either get Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, or Drake May. Terry McLaurin to the moon. I am buying him everywhere I can. Dude is a freak, a stud. And if he, especially, oh my God, I would love to see him with Caleb Williams. It would be absolutely ridiculous. And the last guy, respect my boy Brock Purdy. Okay? I'm sick of it. I am sick of it. What does he need to do? He starts as the last pick in the draft, 9 games his rookie year. And he's really good. He scored like 13, 14 fantasy points in every game. Okay? Then in his first year as a starter, 6 among QBs and fantasy points at 19.3 points per game. The reason you need to respect Purdy, especially for Dynasty, is he is attached to that man, Kyle Shanahan. Now, is Kyle Shanahan good late in games? No. Does he make some really dumb decisions? Absolutely. But you know what Kyle Shanahan can do? He can run a freaking offense, and he can make your quarterback look really good. If you need a reminder, Matt Ryan, first year with Kyle Shanahan, was caught on mic saying, when I figure out this offense, basically this league is fucked. You know what he did the next year? Almost 5,000 yards, 38 touchdowns, 7 picks, 117.1 QB rating. Guess what next year will be? Brock Purdy's second year, full year, as a starter and a Shanahan offense. All those offensive weapons, 30 years or younger of age. 3 of the 4 are locked up. Brock Purdy, it's crazy, the disrespect right now. I got him in the Dynasty Auction Startup League. Right now, the 14th most expensive QB. He's only been in the league 2 years. He's already been a top 6 QB, and he's with the best offensive play caller in football. What are y'all doing, man? Quit disrespecting Brock Purdy. He really is good. and he's only going to get better. He makes quick decisions, gets rid of the ball. He's accurate. I love him. I think that he's the real deal, and I think you should be buying him up because this is just the beginning.
I feel like I need to send you now a Brock Purdy jersey, and all that's missing is you telling me whether it's a white one or a red one. And
I don't know. Falcons, Niners back in the day were in the same division. I'm that old, so I don't really like the Niners, but I do really respect Brock Purdy, and I hate Shanahan, obviously.
Fair enough. Come on. No.
Come on, Jack. I was about to say,
I didn't bring it up. I did not bring it up. Okay. I steered away from it. Okay. 28-3. Going back to now our dynasty targets.
I'm dead inside. It's all good.
Before we get into the dynasty target thing, for those who don't know, when the Falcons didn't draft Jalen Carter last year, here at Fantasy and Frames, we were doing a live stream of the first round of the NFL draft. And immediately, as soon as they drafted Bijan Robinson, Keith Fleming went on one of the most epic rants that could ever have been seen, being completely against this pick. Let's just put it that politely.
Still against it, by the way, but that's okay.
If you go to our YouTube channel, which again, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you look at our YouTube shorts, I'm pretty sure that rant, which I think got like over 600 views and is probably still climbing, is one of our most watched YouTube shorts of all time. It is that great. I'm definitely looking forward to putting this Brock Purdy one up there and seeing how many Niners fans you can appreciate there. Okay, going to dynasty targets real quick. Dontavion Wicks, wide receiver 44, according to DLF's Superflex ADP. Look, I understand I'm paying up for Jaden Reed. I understand I'm probably going to be paying up for Romeo Doubs. I don't understand why I'm paying up for Christian Watson, given the fact that he's having a hard time just staying on the field. Therefore, I want to go and I want to get not so much a roster clogger, but somebody that could fill in nicely for me as a flex. Dontavion Wicks, we saw him have success for the Green Bay offense. We saw him catch that touchdown against Dallas in the playoffs. We saw for a good stretch of the season when Christian Watson was out, he was one of the top targets on this Packers offense. He led them in first reads per fantasy points data suite. He is a playmaker, and you can probably get him for cheap. And again, not a roster clogging situation, somebody that can actually fill in for you. And given the way that this Packers offense just is rolling or was rolling last season, somebody that could definitely help you in your dynasty teams going forward. The next two running backs real quick, Kendra Miller, Chase Brown. Look, how long is Alvin Kamara going to be doing this? If it wasn't for his receiving chops, Alvin Kamara wasn't exactly lighting it up as a rusher per se. Where's this? When you saw Kendra Miller, granted, he did have that one game sample. So again, we're going off of that sample size here. He was fantastic. No kidding. Rookie, fresh legs, all that. And again, we don't know how long Alvin Kamara is going to be there in New Orleans. And if you can get Kendra Miller on the cheap, I would definitely recommend doing so, as he has the tools, he has the talent to really perform for you there. And going back to Chase Brown, look, there are a lot of reports that Joe Mixon maybe cut, and to get somebody at the top of that depth chart there in Cincinnati on that offense with Joe Burrow coming back from surgery. They brought back, or at least they franchise tagged T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. Give me all the pieces atop the depth chart on that starting offense for the Cincinnati Bengals. So to round that out, Dontavion Wicks, Kendra Miller, Chase Brown. Before we wrap up today's show, however, everybody, thank you very much for watching. Who's been watching on X, Facebook, and of course on YouTube. I want to give these guys an opportunity just to plug everything that they're doing, both in and out of the world of fantasy football. So, Keith, why don't you start?
Okay, just trying to make sure. I first want to say I'm going to see Dune 2. Me and the wife are Friday, 5:15. Getting a little nervous because it has like the highest IDMB ranking ever, breaking Schindler's List. So that's, I don't know. You better live up to the hype. That's all I'm saying. Really did enjoy the first one, but right now I am concentrating on golf. That is one of the great things about DFS is there's nothing for me to do football wise right now other than just come on shows like this and run my mouth. But we are, I hate saying this because I know that I'm supposed to be a DFS football expert, but I'm actually better at golf. Like, especially from a gambling perspective, you get a lot better odds. Prime example, last week I give 10 DFS plays each week and then some bets. My favorite bet last week, Jake Knapp won the tournament 40-1. Also, I'm at plus 850 to top 5 and plus 400 to top 10. That is called the trifecta. Very good week. This week, already, we're one round in, and 5 of my 10 players are 5 under or better after one round and within 2 shots of the lead, including a couple of guys who have a chance to have some big money if they win. Every Wednesday, I go on ESPN Northwest Florida, the Inside Drive, do DFS, talk about golf right now. We'll transition back to football, obviously, once football season rolls around. And just, again, I can't recommend enough the content on Fantasy and Frames. The guys do a great job. For somebody like me who just dabbles in this stuff like best ball, dynasty, etc., it's really nice for me to be able to literally go to one place and find all this great information, and it's there every week. So appreciate all the work that people do here. I'm looking forward to this show with Kevin and Jorge. And if you are a wrestling fan, yes, I'm that big of a nerd that I do DFS. I'm going to see Dune and I watch wrestling, but we started a wrestling podcast called Inside the Squared Circle. It's myself, Jorge, and 2 of my good friends, Ronell and Sam, who we actually had a wrestling show way back in the day. We do a weekly show that will keep up with current stuff. We do little shorts where we talk about, like, what was the last stuff, Jorge? It was the best intercontinental champ from the 80s and 90s, right?
That is correct, yes.
And then what we're really excited
Mr.
about.
Perfect. Sorry.
Bret the Hitman Hart. But that's okay. Mr. Perfect's the second best answer.
Oh, Michaels. What?
What I'm really excited about, and I think is going to be a really cool thing for people to watch, is a part of our show that we're going to do special episodes called Storylines You Need to Know. The first one is going to be 4 parts. Mega Powers Explode. All about the Macho Man Randy Savage, Hulk Hogan relationship. I'm talking about before they got together, their match at WrestleMania, the break, everything, all the way to their WCW stuff. Sam Howell has been working on these for literally years. They're great. I cannot wait for people to see them if you're a wrestling fan. Some of the other stories we do is Daniel Bryan's rise in WWE, the era of Triple H, basically shoveling everybody in WWE in the early 2000s. CM Punk is playing. We got a lot of cool stuff. So be sure to check that out. That's Inside the Squared Circle. That's Inside SQ Circle, right, Jorge?
Oh, nailed it. Kevin, what you got going on, man?
I just want to say that, speaking of CM Punk, he has blocked me on Twitter for a number of years.
What'd you say? Or what?
I think it was something about his MMA career. Also, Kevin Owens has blocked me. I think I made a crack about him wearing a T-shirt in the pool randomly. But yeah, I've never been a big fan of CM Punk, but definitely in on all of that as far as the wrestling. Gonna be watching AEW, the pay-per-view coming up. Sting's last match is a little stinger. Very happy about that. Of course, always on the clock in Underdog. Got a couple drafts got to get to. A new venture of mine that I am doing. I've started up a YouTube and a Twitch channel to be playing some video games and stuff like that. I'll be streaming tomorrow. Go add hey it's Kev, all one word, on both platforms. So
what kind of games?
We'll be streaming tomorrow afternoon. Doing a lot of Pokemon stuff. So like a lot of the big challenges and stuff like that. They have like a Kaizo Ironman where you win. You play through one game with one randomized Pokemon, randomized moves, increased trainer levels and stuff like that. It's a lot of starting and stopping. A lot of files get running that. If you check it out tomorrow afternoon on both platforms, you'll see what that is all about. Hope to see you guys there as well. Other than that, appreciate the warm welcome that I've got from, everybody at Fantasy and Frames, Jorge, obviously, bringing me in. Awesome to do the maiden voyage of this show with yourself and Keith. Can't wait to keep it going. Can't wait to keep the scuttlebutt going as we get into free agency, as we get through the combine, and going on forward and onward. So definitely looking forward to everything. Again, thank you so much for bringing me on, and can't wait to see what we do in the future.
Love it, guys. Real quick, I can't wait till we do another podcast together, Keith, for Inside the Squared Circle. Definitely go check that out on all the major social media platforms.
Doing the AEW preview Saturday.
Yes, we are. Speaking of Saturday, little non-fantasy, non-wrestling related. I haven't seen my mom in forever, so I'm actually going over to her house and going to help cook some dinner. So being the good son there. But I'm a sci-fi nerd. I'm a Trekkie. And even though I am a Trekkie, I'm going to betray my Trekkie roots because once a year I have a penchant for like rewatching entire series of shows, and it varies from the type of show it is. But this is going to be a sci-fi show. I feel like it's a Babylon 5 weekend. For those who don't know, Babylon 5 is a secret guilty pleasure of mine in the sci-fi community, heavily debated. But that's what I'm doing. And of course, going forward, it's great having both of you on Fantasy Football Weekly. Everybody who's been watching our maiden voyage today, thank you so much. That's what we're going to be here for. We're going to be talking shop. We're going to be talking about what's going on in the community, get a pulse of the community, bring that to you. For those who are unaware, maybe you're not on Fantasy Football Twitter or X. Well, that's okay. That's a lot. That's a location that a lot of the people who play fantasy football, especially the content creators, go to. So for those who are not on that network, you know what? We're going to bring that to you. We're going to talk about the ins and outs of what's going on in the fantasy football world, the NFL, and just have some fun talking shop. And that's what we're going to be all about here on Fantasy Football Weekly, which you can catch every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. So for Keith, for Kevin, I'm Jorge. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.